I just got my hands on the Ronin 4D. This is one of the most versatile tools I have ever worked with. Let's set it up and get it ready for single operator mode. First thing I want to do is put on a TB50 battery. I'm going to slide it into the back, move it all the way into the lock position by hearing the click. Next thing we're going to do is pick the format we're going to record to. We can pick Pro SSD made by DJI, or we can use CF Express cards. We're going to use the Pro SSD because we want to record 6K RAW, and that's the only way to do it. First thing we're going to have to do is remove this hatch door. You're going to open it, go on the inside, push down this little black lever and pop it off. Super easy. Next thing we're going to do is take the Pro SSD card reader, rotate it around this way, take the dummy CF card, slide it into the slot, push it all the way in until it clicks into position, align the card reader in this hole here. And then there's two Allens. You're going to need a 1.5 millimeter Allen tool, and we'll go ahead and tighten those into position. Once we have tightened this down, we can insert the 1 terabyte DJI Pro SSD. Slide it into the channel here. Hear a click. It's locked into position. To remove the card, you have to hold down this eject button to pull it out. The next thing we're going to do is put a lens on, put the LiDAR sensor on, and bounce the gimbal. Before we can do anything, we have to install a lens mount. For this demonstration, we're going to be using the DJI proprietary DL mount adapter. There are other mount adapters that you can put on this. You can use E mount, L mount, or M mount. For this, we're going to use the DL mount. You're going to want to center this bracket to the top of the lens mount, line it up with the DJI logo, and then rotate this locking mechanism clockwise. You'll just feel it stop there, and that's nice and secured. For this demo, we're going to be using the 17 to 28 millimeter T3 DJI DL mount zoom lens. This has very little chromatic aberration. It's a parafocal zoom lens, meaning that it can focus at 17, punch in, and still be in focus at 28, and it's very smooth on the motor. To install this lens, we're going to line it up red dot to red dot, and push in, rotate clockwise, click. Now that we have the lens installed, we're going to install the LiDAR rangefinder. Right here you see a little silver knob. It's going to slide down this little channel on top of the lens. Tighten this knob down that's on top of the LiDAR. Take this USB-C connector and put it into the gimbal right-hand side. Make sure it's seated, and then use the tightening screw to make sure that it's fully secured. Now that we have the lens installed and the LiDAR sensor, we're going to bounce the gimbal. So the first thing I'm going to do is unlock the pan axis here, unlock the roll axis here, and unlock the tilt axis here. Right now, it is out of balance. It's front heavy, so I'm going to take these two knobs on top. There's a left and right knob. I'm going to unlock both. And I'm going to fine-tune adjust the tilt bounce. Just need to push it back a touch. And I'm going to lock it there. Once I've adjusted the tilt bounce, I can make sure my pan bounce is correct. To bounce the pan, the gimbal cannot be level. You will have to unlevel to see if the pan is out of balance. So it's ever so slightly out there, but it's very, very close. So I think we're good to proceed. Now that we're fully bounced, the gimbal's unlocked, there's a battery power solution on, we can power the 4D. We're going to hold down the power button for 1 second. Let it boot up. Right now, we're mirroring our image from the 4D to the DJI Transmission High Bright monitor. The gimbal's up and running now, it's unlocked, it's energized, and it's ready to go. The next thing we need to do is install our hand grips. There's a left and a right. You're going to want to take the male hand grip and slide it into this cold shoe adapter on the left until you hear the click, and then move this black lever down to the lock position. Make sure it's nice and snug so it doesn't get loose. You're going to do the same thing with the right handle grip. You're going to slide it into the cold shoe until you hear the click, and then make sure that the black knob is to the lock position. Another really cool feature with these hand grips, you press it and then move it into the desired position. You have almost 180 degrees of tiltability in these, which is fantastic for different shots. So now that we have the hand grips installed, we're going to jump over to the project settings and make sure that this is ready to shoot in the mode that we want it to. With this 5-inch high bright, we can adjust all the settings on the camera. Right outside here, we have the home button. It also acts as the menu button. Press the menu button, go into recording. Right now we're shooting full frame, ProRes 422 LT at 4K resolution. We're doing 23.97 frames per second. We're recording to the DJI Pro SSD. We're using a Rec 709 LUT. That's A, reel count was changed to 1. The next setting we want to check is that the left and right microphone are set to the correct settings. You can also put your own audio input. Under the recording tab, settings, we can change image sharpness, noise reduction, record sound alert, or a tally light. Under display, exposure assistant, we can select the type of exposure assistance we want to work. We can choose zebra stripes, waveform, or false color. In the menu, under display, focus assistant, we can select the peak button functions. We can choose between focus peaking, focus magnification, or LiDAR waveform. Right now, we're going to play with the LiDAR waveform because it's one of the coolest features on this system. So I have LiDAR waveform selected, and then I want to make sure that I toggle over to the LiDAR waveform on the right and turn it on. When I come out of the menu, on the right-hand side of my screen, you're going to see the waveform here. That is where the object that we want to focus on is. And lining up that yellow line with the waveform that we see shows us that we're in focus. It's a really, really cool feature. Under user settings, we can customize the C1, C2, and right trigger button. For this project, I loaded a profile called Filmmakers One. It has all my favorite settings for the project preloaded. So I can load it here by going to Filmmakers One and then say confirm. The user profile function is very cool because you might have different settings for each job or for each scene. You can program them and then reload them quickly at any point in the job. Next, we're going to format this Pro SSD. So we're going to go to Storage, Format Pro SSD, and then for an extra layer of protection, they make you tap and hold this Format button. That makes sure that you don't accidentally format precious media that could cost you thousands of dollars. Now that we've formatted, we have a good card. We make sure all our settings in system are cool. The two most important settings in system are going to be fan mode and factory reset. If there's major issues with your gimbal, obviously you're going to want to power it on and off first to see if that solves it. If the issues still persist after a reboot, you're going to want to do a factory reset. The other setting, fan mode, is important when you're rolling and sound is really sensitive on set. The best way to handle the loud fan noise with the sound mixer is going to be go to record low. When you go to record low, when the camera's idling, the fans will be moving at full tilt, cooling the system. When you do press record, the fans will bring that back so that the noise is not as bad. If you do go to low noise, it will be tapering back how much power the fans get 100% of the time, and you could overheat the camera. I would not recommend doing that mode unless you have to do it because of sound. For this demonstration, we're going to leave the fan mode in normal. That keeps the system's fans moving so that it does not overheat. The next menu function we're going to jump into is the lens. So we have focus, calibration, and motor. Under focus, we can select what kind of autofocus mode we want to be in. The two different autofocus modes are AF and AMF. AF is autofocus, AMF is automated manual focus. AMF lets you interact with the autofocus by inputting your own input into the dial while it's trying to do its autofocus job. ROI is region of interest. You can go from spot, wide, or smart. For this, we're going to go spot, just so that it's incredibly precise when we do select an object for active track or for autofocus. Over here, we have manual focus mode. under the manual focus mode, we're going to select distance. If you don't select distance, the LiDAR rangefinder will not be able to work. We have the autofocus sensitivity to high, active track speed. When you select an object with active track mode, we can tell the system how fast it wants to try to track with that object. I'm going to select fast, and we're going to really push it to the limit and see what it can do. We can also invert the zoom direction and the focus direction on the wheel on the right-hand knob. Right now we have the unit to be set to imperial. What we need to do now is go into the menu. We're going to go to stabilizer. We're going to go to gimbal calibration, and we're going to select auto tune. I'm going to hit confirm. You're going to want to make sure that the gimbal is on a flat surface, all axes are unlocked, and that the gimbal is energized. Two other features I like to have turned on is push pan and push tilt. This allows me to force the camera and gimbal into positions by push panning and push tilting. This can help reorient the gimbal quickly without hurting the motors or messing anything up. I've just did an auto tune, and now I want to do a horizontal calibration. So I'm going to select it, I'm going to confirm, and let it do its thing. Try not to touch the gimbal while it's tuning or calibrating. The only other two adjustments that I can make is doing a pan adjustment and a roll adjustment. The point of the pan and roll is to find center. So for pan, I want to make sure that the gimbal, the X9 gimbal, is in line with the top handle of the main body. If for some reason, when you recenter, the gimbal is off of that line, then you're going to need to do a pan adjustment. The same goes for roll. If for some reason, when the gimbal is set to center and it is not level, you're going to need to go and fine tune the roll adjustment. You can also adjust what this joystick on the top handle controls. Right now we have it on tilt. It's the most intuitive way to have it set. You can also control pan, roll, or zoom with the top handle rocker. Max speeds are at 50, expo curves at 25, smoothing's at 5. You can also invert the joystick direction depending on how you like to fly. Another really cool feature is sport mode. Sport mode strengthens the gimbal's motors to the highest value in order to be as reactive as it possibly can be. So in sport mode, it's almost one-to-one with my movement. This is not going to always be the way to operate the shot if you want the buttery smooth kind of movement, but for certain types of shots, it can be the best way to get it. All of the settings are close to the most optimum place that we want them. Now we're going to focus on the left and right handles that control all of these different features and functions. Let's focus on the left one first. On the left handle by our left thumb, we have this button here. This is the active track button. Active track is going to allow you to select a point in space that the lens is pointed at and automatically track with that subject no matter where you move the gimbal. So if you hold down the inside mode button, that's going to enable sport mode and immediately engage it. As soon as I release it, it'll go back to the buttery smooth parameters I had set for the follow mode. As soon as I hold down sport, it can react incredibly fast. So now I'm going to go over the right hand grip. The right hand grip has a mode selector tool that's going to toggle you from the zoom control, ND settings, ASA or ISO, iris control, and then focus. The focus/zoom knob also works to toggle through menus when you are inside the menu. As you see here, I can move around with it and use it as a selector tool as such. To the right of the mode button is a peaking button. That removes the LiDAR waveform or puts it back on the screen. You can also go into the settings and change what comes up when you do hit the peaking button. You can go between peaking, focus magnification, or the LiDAR waveform. To the right of the peaking button is a start and stop record button. You tap it one time, you get a beep, you get the tally light, you're recording. Tap it one time again, you've cut the camera. You can double tap the right hand trigger to engage the Z-axis. the Z-axis will pop up, and to disengage the Z-axis, you're going to want to double tap the trigger again, just like so. Before you can engage the Z-axis out of the box, there is a locking toggle here. You're going to want to unlock this bottom bracket. Now you can ensure that the Z-axis can safely raise when you do engage it. Before you turn on the Z-axis, you're going to want to pick the gimbal up off of whatever surface it's on. You don't want to block the sensors underneath. You want it to know where it is in space. I'm going to engage it, and then I can set it back down. In order to balance the Z-axis, you're going to want to use this knob on top in the middle of the 4D. There's a plus and a minus. When it is out of balance, it will show a little graph, and it will tell you in which direction to rotate the knob. This knob adjusts the spring arm to make it perform the most optimal way for the payload that's on this arm. So right now, I've rotated the knob, and I've tuned the Z-axis arm. Right now, we're set up for success. We've put in the right settings. Let's take it out and operate it.